try to get people to join us. Welcome to our first Sentry DevRel live stream. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Sarah. How are you?
I am currently trying to figure out why I can hear myself over and over again. There we go. Okay.
Echo.
Yeah, definitely an echo. Doing well. It's October finally. Spooky season. It's my favorite. Have y'all been watching spooky movies? Do you like horror movies?
Kinda.
Always.
I don't know.
Big
Yeah,
fan,
same.
yeah.
I'm an always kind of horror person. I finished all of the Screams, all 5.
Screams.
And then I'm now on to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, this music is looping.
I usually watch like one scary horror movie like a year. And I always try to make sure it's like an old one. So it's not like super, super scary. I was like traumatized by Saw as a small child.
To be fair, Saw is just like gory.
Yeah,
I would argue.
Yeah.
I do not.
Yeah.
It's a totally different category.
Like Saw. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so whatever that category is, I don't like it.
Yeah. No. Same. Lazar, what are you watching?
Like, one of the best horror movies that I've watched so far has been The Woman in Black with Daniel
it's
Radcliffe.
so good.
Chilling. It was like super chill.
So good.
Yeah,
that one's really
there's
good.
no jump scares, there's no gory scenes, but you're afraid from the first minute until the last.
It's true.
Yeah.
For anybody watching, let us know in the chat if you've got some horror films you're excited to watch this year. Halloween Ends is coming out soon. What was that one called? There's one on like October 7th on Paramount looks really creepy. I can't remember what it's called now. No, Smile looks good though.
Smile is super. Like I can't wait to watch.
Oh my gosh, have you seen the like ads for it with the people at the like baseball parks and they're just like smiling? It's so good. So good. But okay, spooky season also means Hacktoberfest season. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Hacktoberfest, and we're going to be showing you 4 of the open source repos that Sentry maintains. Because remember, Sentry is open source. But we have Hacktoberfest labels and issues and ways that you can participate. So we're going to show you that. But before we do, this is the first time all of Sentry DevRel team, all 3 of us, are on a stream together and kind of chatting with you all live. So I wanted to give a chance to kind of introduce our team. A lot of you, maybe, I don't know, depending on where you're watching this, we're streaming in a lot of different places. But you might know me. I'm Sarah Guthels. I lead our DevRel team here. I have done way too many things to count. I never know how to kind of describe, but I used to be a startup founder building software and educational content for kids to learn to code. Then I was an engineering manager at GitHub, leading our integrations into Visual Studio, VS Code, Atom, and Unity. Then moved over to Microsoft as a developer advocate, and now lead DevRel here at Sentry. Shanna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, definitely. Hello, everyone. I am currently in Minneapolis because I am trapped here between 2 weddings. So please excuse my not optimal streaming setup. Don't know what the Wi-Fi is like, so hopefully it won't be too bad. So I am originally from the Midwest, which is why I have so many weddings in Iowa. Or I'm from Iowa, but so many weddings in the Midwest. I was formerly a software engineer at Microsoft, worked on mapping SDKs, mostly in C++. So that's kind of where a lot of my experience is. And I actually met Sarah at Microsoft when I switched over to do developer advocacy there in Azure. That's where our paths crossed. And then I was at Coinbase for a while doing developer advocacy there too. And Sarah recruited me over to come here to Sentry.
I did. Thank you, Shanna. Lazar, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Lazar Nikolov. If you don't know how to pronounce Lazar, you can call me Lucky because it's easier. Yeah, I've been a software engineer for 7 years. I've been working in a agency called CodeCamp. Now I am the newest DevRel at Sentry. I decided to jump ship to developer advocacy. I don't know. I like it. I like it better. So that's yeah. I don't need to explain. I like
No.
DevRel. That's it is what it is. Yeah. So yeah, I am in Sentry now. I enjoy it. I'm making Twitch streams. I'll be making YouTube videos. It's just pure fun.
It is pure fun. And we actually do have, hello, Omar, how are you? We do have a community page that will continue to get updates over time. But let me pop open this and add this to our stream here. So you can head over to sentry.io/community. Shanna, I don't know about you, but I always want to say whack every time there's slash. Like, it was never something I said prior to Microsoft, and then at Microsoft, everyone's like blah blah whack community, and then it's like got stuck in my head. But you
never said that at Microsoft. I always thought that was stupid. I was like,
it
no.
is. But it like got stuck in my head. We're gonna be updating this soon because Lazar, you just finished a month-long set of streams on Swift, and now you're moving into what?
Moving into Flutter. Yeah, that was 3 weeks of Swift UI. It was interesting 3 weeks, but yeah, we are continuing with Flutter.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what Flutter has to offer because I was checking out the developer survey on Stack Overflow. Flutter was like the #1 most loved framework. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I've heard pretty amazing things on it. So I'm looking forward to kind of watching your streams too. We also have some, so you might have heard of our conference last week. DEX stands for Developer Experience. Hybrid conference is still available on our website if you want to check it out. Sentry.io/event/DEX, and there's actually the full live stream there. But we will be continuing this trend of DEX meetups, whether they're virtual things, in-person things. For example, Shannon and I will be hanging out in Seattle later this month of October. Come co-work with us if you want to work on a Hacktoberfest project. That's probably going to be mostly what we're going to be focused on, is just kind of open source contributions. It does not have to only be Sentry related. So if you're in the Seattle area, make sure you check out. You can register and you'll get more information about where, when, how, why, and what. Also, our whole open source team is at All Things Open at the end of this month. I think it's like October 31st through the November 2nd, something like that. So check out All Things Open. They'll be there. And if you are someone in the world and you want to co-host a meetup with us, whether it's virtual or in person, literally worldwide, there's an opportunity for you to check that out. Let us know. We can do anything from like a happy hour to like, let's run a half-day mini conference on Flutter. Sounds great. And then of course we've got our Discord. You can come chat with us. We have webinars and such like that. So feel free to check it out on sentry.io/community. But today we're not going to talk just about DevRel here at Sentry. Today we're talking about Hacktoberfest. I'm pretty excited. What has been your experience with open source, Shanna and Lazar? And those of you watching, if you want to kind of share anything that has been like a good or challenge, let's talk about a little bit about open source before we just jump into participating in Hacktoberfest. Oh, wait, Shanna, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself. My fiance is walking around at our little Airbnb here. I like to say I grew up at Microsoft as a software engineer. And my time actually like started at Microsoft right about when Satya started as CEO. So I definitely like came into a company that didn't have a reputation of being friendly, maybe the opposite to the open source community. So it was really cool seeing that change. But as a dev, definitely, like I worked on like Windows, SDKs that were embedded in the operating system. So it's like super closed source. So as a dev, like my experience was definitely, I wouldn't say hostile to the open source community.
So you're happy to work at an open source company now?
Embracing it. Yes, it's very different. And I really liked being able to, when I moved over to be a developer advocate and work in Azure, do a lot more stuff that was open source. You know, it was as simple as like all of our docs that we made were open source. Like all examples that we made, like we published as open source. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted to be doing, which is part of the reason I switched to developer advocacy in the first place. So yeah, I'm not like a core contributor like some people on this team to open source projects, but I love the ecosystem. I love the ethos of open source, and yeah, super psyched to be at Sentry where you can actually like contribute.
I love that. And something that you mentioned, like at Microsoft, all of the docs are open source. And especially as we're just getting started with Hacktoberfest, it's important to remember that contributions to open source projects are not just code contributions, because open source projects are often maintained by either really small teams, individual people on their, you know, just in their spare time, not necessarily, you know, a full team of engineers being paid tech salaries to maintain something. And so it's hard. It's hard to keep up with readmes. It's hard to keep up with, oh, we've just, you know, updated, you know, to use this other process and, or this other way to deploy. And now I have to rewrite the, you know, contributing guide or, you know, whatever it might be. There's a lot of things. And so when you're first getting started with an open source project, and if you're noticing docs are out of date, if you're noticing that, like, you know, oh, wait, actually you should be using this version of Python and it just didn't suggest that. You know, open up a PR, be respectful, you know, don't assume that like they just didn't do it. Number one rule of open source, be respectful. But, you know, open up a PR and say, hey, I noticed that this, you know, seems to be using the wrong Python. Here's a suggestion for how I got it to work for me. Include information like I'm on a Mac OS, I'm on, you know, this version of the operating system, I'm running, you know, this version of my editor, whatever it is. So then that way, if for some reason, maybe you're just out of date and the project isn't, they can kind of give you that feedback. Lazar, what's your experience with open source?
As you can tell by my hat, I'm pretty big on open source. I think, you know, the whole tech industry relies heavily on everything open source. We fly planes on open source software, so it better be good, right? Otherwise we'll just hit the ground. But no, yeah, I'm pretty big on open source, and I totally agree with what you just said. It doesn't have to be code contributions, because if you like remove all of my open source contributions except the code ones, I'll have like 3 PRs in total, right? I have like zillion PRs opened, non-code base or like functionality, but docs, right? Anything like CI/CD, exactly, yeah. So totally, anything that you can do for an open source project is an open source contribution. If you can like figure out a way to get donations for that project, that's an open source contribution. If you can figure out a way to connect the creator with, I don't know, someone who does events and conferences, that's an open source. Everything is an open source contribution, and you know, as long as you're helping an open source project, it doesn't have to be just code.
Yep. Completely agree. Yeah, most of my work has been open source. I did a few internships and things where it was closed source, but luckily at GitHub, my team, I ran essentially, it was like one team, but it was really 4 teams because we were building 4 different products. And that was all open source. So and like Shanna said, advocacy at Microsoft was all open source. So moving into Sentry was important. Like that was part of the decision to move here, was that they were open source. So Hacktoberfest, how do we even get started? If you're new to Hacktoberfest, you can head over to hacktoberfest.com, which I'll go ahead and throw in the chat, as well as make a little banner for it. Also, did this music get much louder? I feel like it got much louder. Is that just me? We have spooky music, but so you can head over to Hacktoberfest. Highly recommend registering, because the point of registering is that you actually get the credit for participating. The nice thing about the Hacktoberfest site that DigitalOcean runs is there's a lot of supportive documentation here, or support documentation. So first of all, there's a Discord you can join. Make sure that you learn about how to participate, what the values are, how you can give contributions. And there's a ton of resources for beginners. So if you're new to GitHub, if you're new to GitLab, if you're new to open source in general, if you're new to Git and you need to know how to use Git, ways to find things to work on. So we're going to give you 4 different repositories as suggestions, but upforgrabs.net is a very popular place to find open source projects that are looking for support. So you can check out, filter by languages and things like that. And then also we've got these 2 open source repositories, which are basically combinations, or gathering open PRs and first contribution tags. And so you can check out all of these. That's a little bit about open source. This wasn't going to be a full-on, open source tutorial though. What this is instead is we're going to tell you a little bit about our Sentry repositories. So we have 4 repositories that have Hacktoberfest labels so far. This first one is on our Sentry Python. I'll go ahead and throw that in the chat as well. And you can check it out, just github.com/getsentry/SentryPython. And then this issue in particular, which you'll be able to find if you just head over to issues, it's the Hacktoberfest issue right here, gives an overview of what you need to do to be able to participate in this. And so you can see that Anton, first of all, read our code of conduct. Second of all, write in the issue that you want to take, that you're going to take it on, and likely that it's for Hacktoberfest. You're going to have to do some things where you tag Hacktoberfest as a label for your PR so that it gets counted, especially if you've registered. And you can ask questions, but you just literally need to head over to our issue list and check it out. Someone, these are ones that are tagged for Hacktoberfest. Update span ops. This is a great one for someone to tackle. Here's a list of things that our teams are not trying to just pass off work to our community, but rather engage and invite you to participate and be a collaborator and a contributor to our open source projects. So we're here to help. You can see Anton and Abhijit are here adding contextual information about how someone might be able to tackle this. Oftentimes when you're looking through open source repositories, especially if you're a first-time contributor, there's a couple of ways that you can engage. Obviously, Hacktoberfest labels during Hacktoberfest. That's a great way. But also things that are in the backlog. Those are often things that the team of maintainers aren't getting to right away. So those are often great places to start. And you can check out things like good first issue. So here's a couple of good first issues, things that we think are going to be less of a barrier to entry to getting started on this particular project. Yeah, again, highly recommend before you jump into just getting started, before you even head over to the issues and start reading into that, actually read, get ready to contribute, be a part of this community. So there's readmes. We always document how to get started, how to set up your local environment. For our Python SDK, these are all of the different integrations that we have that are Python based. So if there's one in particular you're excited about, go ahead and check it out. Again, if you need some help, our Discord is available. I'll throw that on here as well. Discord.gg/Sentry. And then before I do it, I always just like to quadruple check that I did that right. So you can head over to our Discord, but then also various of our repositories have discussions open. And so if it's not a particular issue you're opening because you want to, you've noticed a bug or you want a feature request or whatever, but instead you want to have a conversation about our support, our Python support in general, you can head over to the discussion board. They're fairly active and our teams are always there to monitor things. So that's just a quick overview of kind of open source at Sentry.
Yeah, I just wanted to also jump in to say that we did, like, there are 4 repos, SDK repos that Sentry has that people did put issues on, but actually almost all of our repos already have the Hacktoberfest tag on the repo itself. So if you want to contribute to other open source repos besides the ones that just already have the 2022 issue posted, they should, anything that people are contributing to regularly should already have the Hacktoberfest tag and therefore be eligible for Hacktoberfest. And if you see one that doesn't, like I think our Snoobler repo doesn't have the Hacktoberfest tag, but if you want to make Hacktoberfest eligible contributions to that repo, just let us know and we'll make sure the tag gets on there.
Thank you, Shanna. Yeah, remember, Sentry supports like everything. It's kind of a lot, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. But yeah, to your point, Shanna, we're going to be talking, like I just kind of showed you the Python one. Shanna's going to talk to us a little bit about our JavaScript one. And then we've also got our Dart/Flutter and our React Native ones. So those are the ones that have these specific Hacktoberfest issues. But yeah, please feel free to explore. Like if you are super into PHP, jump in there. We've got the Hacktoberfest tag right there. And, just head over to our issues and let us know. Awesome. And yeah, feel free if you have any questions in the chat, just let us know. Let's jump into the JavaScript one. Shanna.
Sure. Okay, cool. So this JavaScript SDK repo holds all of the SDKs like you might use that are JavaScript related. So that's all the front end ones, which we have a million, as well as our Node SDK too. So it's kind of like a mono repo with a whole bunch of stuff in it. The best way to get started, I would say, is to check out the contributing markdown file. If you search for contributing, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Which gives you pretty much everything you would need to know to get started. It's pretty simple if you've used Node before. All the basics are there. It's really simple to get up and running. I did notice that I was trying to build it. If you scroll down to the building section, I was going to ask someone about this, but I think the build dev filter command isn't there anymore. So if you want to just build one specific package, just navigate to that package and you can build fine from that package location in the directory. Yeah, let's see. Anything else we should talk about? Or
I mean, one thing that we briefly touched on is running tests, right? So most open source projects nowadays, especially, have automated tests. It's really important that before you say, hey, I think this is ready to be integrated, that you've actually run the tests on your pull request, because I think it's fairly obvious, right? Like if you haven't even run the tests and you're asking the team to merge in your request, then it's just going to turn into a big mess. So running tests is really important. And again, like we mentioned before, contributing additional tests. So if you really like to find all of those edge cases and you're identifying them and you want to add to the tests, that's cool too.
Yeah, and if you want to make a contribution, actually, I'm pretty sure all the SDK repos require you to add tests as part of your pull request before it can even be accepted. So definitely don't skip that part. Running the test is probably the first thing you should do after cloning the repo and building.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Does anyone here do test-driven development? Truly?
No, I never have.
I want to be one of those people. Like I just feel like it's one of I feel like people who are like very dedicated to test driven development are just like very good at life. They're just like good planners. They know what they want. They go after it. I don't know. I just yeah, good
I don't know.
people.
I mean, test-driven development is just one of those ideas that's like, yeah, it's a lovely thought, but no one, I don't think any real human has the patience to actually sit down and do that, especially if they're just working on like a personal project. Like I can't.
If you're watching this and you're a test driven development person, tweet at Shanna and say I'm a real person.
If you actually do it.
I actually took a course in college. It was a software design course, and we literally had to write like we were building this application, and we literally had to like write the whole application in flowcharts before starting. And it was like and included tests within the flow, but like we literally were drawing it like on paper. And it was fascinating because nobody writes code like that, especially like, part of our DEX conference was all about how our ecosystem is so complex. Like you could never just write something on a piece of paper. But the idea of like really fully understanding exactly kind of what you're about to try to build and why and how, I think that in particular was fascinating to me. And I feel like as an ADHD, AUDHD person, like jealous. I'm very jealous of someone who could ever do that, whether it was worthwhile or not. I don't know. It just sounds like interesting. Did you check out any of the issues, Shanna, on the JavaScript one yet?
I think I had looked through some of them, but I didn't really get too far into it. I was just trying to find one that was Node instead of front end. And there's like so many front end packages versus like one Node one.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, that's something that we didn't necessarily mention when we were introducing ourselves. But Shanna, what are you going to be focusing on in terms of your technical content here at Sentry?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm going to focus on backend stuff. I'd obviously like love, since my like background is in C++ development, I'd love to do some of that too. Maybe if possible, like get into some C or C++ like embedded-y stuff. But we'll see. Mostly backend is the plan.
Yeah. It's been so long since I've written C++. It's been like
just
2 decades.
It like hurts my brain in a good way, which like ironically, actually, I feel like that's how I feel when I'm trying to use D3. So I suck at JavaScript, which is like already, you're in a bad place if you're trying to use D3. And then like D3, I feel like has a reputation for being really hard to wrap your brain around. And I feel that way when I'm trying to write stuff in D3, but I feel like it like hurts my brain in such like a good way. Like after you work out and you're all sore, I'm like, oh, my brain is sore from this.
I get it. That was how I felt when I had to write assembly in college.
Because it was just like, because you love it.
I loved it, but it was such a workout. It was just like, oh God, I like, yeah. Anyways, I like still think about it. Like sometimes when I'm like, I don't know, I'm just like, oh, I bet that. Anyways, yeah, Lazar, what are you going to be focusing on?
Yeah, I'm going to be focusing on front end and mobile. I think it's been a while since I wrote some C++, and I think it's going to be even more while until I actually write any more C++. So
that's what you think.
That's what I think.
I'm just kidding.
That's so funny.
Let us know. I was gonna say, let us know in the chat if you want to see a bunch of C++ content so that we can have Lazar.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I remember back in the day there was BlackBerry, and BlackBerry apps used to be developed in C++. People don't vote for BlackBerry because I'm gonna have to write C++.
Were they really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I tried it. It was. Ooh.
I don't think I ever thought of BlackBerry and apps like in the same sentence, to be honest.
Same.
I never had a BlackBerry though.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. But how I envisioned it was like, hey, you buy a phone with apps pre-installed. You don't really download them, or like anyone develops them, they develop them themselves. So
right.
Cool. We also have this Dart Flutter repository. Lazar, you were looking through this one, right?
No, I was actually
A
looking
little
at
bit.
the React Native. A little bit, yeah,
Oh,
but
that's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we also have the React Native
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
also Hacktoberfest enabled.
And you have something that we might actually work on right now for the React Native one,
Yeah, I hope so.
right?
I'm like trying to figure out if I can run the app because
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
we can
I
figure it out
think I did
together.
some issues. Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, so we do have our Flutter one. We've got about 63 open issues right now. Of course, the Hacktoberfest one. Not all of these issues, like these haven't been tagged with Hacktoberfest, but you can see things like small effort, up for grabs. You know, you can still look into ways that you can contribute without having a Hacktoberfest tag. And this is a good, you know, indication. Like all of these are Sentry repositories, but there's different teams, there's different people working on them. And Sentry is actually still pretty small company. And so the number of people working on any given repository and then also like across multiple repositories is still pretty small. So as you're going out and looking for Hacktoberfest opportunities, not just within Sentry, remember that like if a repository isn't like fully set up yet and they're like, hey, yes, Hacktoberfest, it's a thing and we will like help, but they don't have like a bunch of issues tagged with Hacktoberfest, that doesn't mean that they're not invested in it. It just means that they're probably a small team. React Native, want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah.
Lazar?
Yeah. So Sentry has a separate package for integrating with React Native, which is super cool. And what it does, I think it's a wrapper for the some kind of a wrapper for the core one. It just doesn't use the browser because, right, we are not in a browser environment. And I found an interesting issue on the React Native repo. It's not marked as Hacktoberfest, but if we can fix it, no one can stop us. So
Let's
I'm gonna share.
Yeah, you can share your screen. I like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I like that way of thinking. If we can fix it, no one can stop us.
No one
We
can
should make
stop
some
us.
DevRel
Yeah.
shirts about that.
Alright, so let me see. Share screen, present screen. Screen. I don't know who is screen 1 or screen 2.
You can also do window.
Oh, there we go.
Mm.
Yay, permissions for sharing screen. Right, I hope this works. Can you see?
Not yet. 1 second. Now we can. Can you zoom in
Nice.
a little bit? Make the text a little bigger.
Nice. Yeah, so I found this issue where there is an issue where I found this issue where there's an issue when integrating full story with Sentry in React Native. Right. So for example, there is a Sentry full story repo that's already available. It's a package that you can install, but this is for a browser, right? Because it relies on the Sentry browser SDK and also the full story browser SDK. And if you run this in React Native, they'll say, what is a browser, right? We are in an app. It's still a web view, but yeah, still. So there is an issue, and upon reading through the comments and like trying to understand what it is, it turns out that actually we need a new integration that integrates full story React Native instead of the full story browser. So I thought maybe we can like give this a go and actually try to fix it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. There's a
So
lot
what
of conversation on it already.
Totally, yeah, and it actually like it's good because it helped me understand what the issue is, and also I continued talking with Manuel as well. He also enlightened me more about what the issue could be and how we can resolve it.
Awesome.
So yeah, I tried doing some stuff, and I'm always running into issues, as you can see here. Basically, we can't I don't know what it is. I just can't seem to run the app. It always fails to build. By the way, this is the first time that I'm actually trying React Native, so don't don't
Yeah.
judge me.
You're making
Yeah.
me want to maybe just try to follow our guide and get it working on my machine too. I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
I
to do
mean,
that right now.
we can try that. Yeah, although
Let's do
this
it.
here's like an overview of what I'm trying to do. So I initialized a new turbo repo project that has the packages and apps added as monorepo packages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I copied over the Sentry full story project. There we go. And this one relies on the full story browser and Sentry browser, right? We cannot use this in React Native. So we
Right.
need to revert from the browser to React Native.
Right.
It looks like an ordinary dependency swap. I checked the interfaces between the full story browser and full story React Native. They're pretty much the same. So I think it's safe to say that we can roll with this. Here is the Sentry full story integration. And there's also the types, which we only need the event and get current session URL, right? So this is the full story client. I checked the React Native. They're pretty much there. You know, we can use this. The only difference is that there is no now as an argument for the get current session URL. So I guess we'll have to use it without one, even though we actually pass through in the web bound. So it's always now, right? It's always
Okay.
now. So we'll just remove this
Yep.
from there. We could publish this as a separate package, right? So that would be full story React Native, for example. If we could actually try this, and instead of browser, we need to rely on the React Native package. Now let me just check the versions, because they're probably not. There we go. So the peer dependencies are okay. I mean, it's okay if they're like greater than or equal. But we can bump the React Native, the full story, and Sentry. As you can see, the browser one is 510, but the React Native one is like 4.6. So we need to lower the actual. Yeah, there we go. Now we are at the latest. And this is pretty much how we can swap the dependencies, you know, looking from a dependency perspective. But when we get inside, what we can do is, instead of using the browser, we can use the React Native. And I think, okay, yeah, of course, we need to yarn everything now. And we can get Sentry from Sentry React Native instead of browser. We can get full story from React Native instead of browser. Everything pretty much should stay the same. Okay. Let's see now. Probably even not. But fatal is not assignable to severity or undefined. Yeah, there are some type issues here and there.
Yeah.
Okay. Full story client. This is, yeah, I think we need to remove this because there is no
Right.
get
No,
current
no.
session.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can actually check that from, this is the Sentry one. I think, let me check my other tabs. I
We-
had it open somewhere.
Might it be on our Sentry full story one,
I
Repo?
think it was like the,
or is it still
let's
on the React?
just open this and check this out. This is the Sentry full story, and it's pretty much this is the browser one, but I think I was looking
Yeah.
at the npm.js/package/this, but React Native instead. And I opened the repository to actually see the API. I found the typings right here, and I found that the get current session URL that returns a promise of
Yep.
string doesn't actually accept any parameters, right? So we need
Right.
to reflect on that. So that's why we're going to remove this. And the event has the, where was it? String and object. So we have the event name as a string. And we have an object for the properties, which is pretty much the same. And now let's fight through the stuff. This .client is the options.client. Full story client or undefined, and this .client somehow doesn't match, right? The error is, is missing the following properties. The full story client event gets get current session URL. That's crazy. There's the interface, which actually has these, but we're not actually, and we, okay. That's crazy. Let's see. What if I did this? .default, all right, there we go. .default, and then we can get these. I guess that is, okay, yeah, it is the default export, and well, instead of this, we can import it as, we don't need the default now. Promise of string is not, okay, there we go. We also need to make this, change this as a promise.
Right.
Of string, probably not null.
Right.
Now it doesn't actually complain, And where we're going to try to get this, that means we also need to await for that promise, but we'll see. Now the events are not compatible. Is not assignable to parameter of type event processor, right? Because this is now the Sentry React Native.
Right, not the browser.
And this one has a string of ID, and also the event processor has the event, and this is a different kind of an event probably. Yeah, Sentry types. You know what? Why don't we let the TypeScript resolve the, now it's smarter. We can kill this.
I think if you want to pause real quick, what you just did right now, leveraging TypeScript. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Let me just undo. So we had this, right? And because we are in TypeScript environment, TypeScript can infer or basically like inherit the types when we're using different implementations. For example, the implementation of add global event processor, right, can take the event processor, which also defines its own types. And as you can see, we are in the node module / Sentry / types, etc., right? And these types are the ones that are defined within the package. So these types are the ones that are the correct ones. In our case, we are redefining those types from, where were they? Yeah, we had this import here. There we go, from Sentry types. It's pretty much the same, right? Although it uses their a different internal Sentry types. So it will be okay, since we're in TypeScript, it will be okay to remove and not explicitly show the type when getting, obtaining the event and hint from the actual, maybe we can like even remove this as well. From the actual arguments, because TypeScript knows if we hover on it, we'll see that it shows that the type is sentry.event, which is the correct one, and the hint is always actually event hint, right? So we don't need to explicitly change the type or like provide the type here. TypeScript is smart enough to obtain it by itself.
I think that's one thing that's sometimes difficult when you're jumping into a new language or framework or whatever, is understanding what is like available to you to help you so that you don't have to do everything. And I think that's part of the complexity of like developing in this new world, like being a developer, right? Is like, it's not just knowing how to write the code. It's also knowing when to not overwrite code.
Exactly. Yeah. when not to like write too much than you need.
When the computer is smarter than us and when we're smarter than the computer.
So check this out. Now we're getting some issues from the hint because the get Sentry URL, but you know what? This is actually on our side. No. This is the hint is an optional event hint. So let's try.
We did remove the optional.
Yeah. If we bring it back.
Yeah. No.
I don't think it's an optional event hint or undefined. Now let's see. I guess we need to scroll down. Yeah, so the hint, event hint or undefined, and the our property hint, they do not match now. Let's see why. Full story React Native. Okay. Packages, not modules, Sentry types. There we go. You see, we got Sentry right here. Then we got types. Then this one is getting it from the dist. This one is another types, and then event right here. So that's an issue, right? That is an issue. And this get Sentry URL actually comes from the source /util. So this is basically our own implementation, right? And this is the type that we need to match. Yeah, so it was / probably dist and then types, was it?
Was it types or dist before type?
I guess just this. Let's see.
I think it was Sentry, dist, then types. No?
So this one is
types then dist.
Event.
Yeah.
Yeah, is not assignable to types dist event.
Yep.
Okay, so we need to pull that from types dist event. Does it match now? I don't really like pulling from dist. It should be, it should be just from the types itself, but yeah.
Yeah.
This is the hint, event hint. If we try to find that event hint here, and it's not optional, by the way.
Yeah.
There's the interface. So it's from types.
So it's not the dist.
Yeah. This is what we get.
Yeah.
And we can also update our utilities. It's not the dist, actually.
Types.
It's like types. And we can even remove, where was it? Okay, it's not complaining now.
Nope.
But we don't even need to make this an optional. It's still not going to complain because the event processor doesn't actually return it as an optional. It always has a value. So no errors right now. And what we actually did is super minor refactoring, but we're using the React Native packages, like the React Native versions instead of the browser. There's another browser that we need to change. So from React Native instead, errors? Nope. Sentry dot. We're getting the current hub, we're getting the current client, getting the current options, and just like destructuring the DSN from the options. This is basically when you follow the guide, it will ask you to do the init here and provide your DSN here, for example, in your app.js file.
Can you zoom in on that again a little bit?
Yeah. There we go. Right, so this is how we initialize the Sentry SDK in React Native. We import from React Native and we just call it init. But these are the options. This is, initializing the Sentry client. As far as I know, I still haven't gotten much deeper into how Sentry works on on a code base. But basically, there's this thing called hub and a client and scope. So hubs are automatically created for you when you initialize, Sentry, the Sentry client in your app. And the hubs are, as a user, you're not really going to interact with the hubs. You can interact with the scope, but not really in the hubs unless you're creating a custom integration, like for example, we do right now. I guess hubs are like a central thing that, every event listener and like options and everything are basically centered in the hubs. And when you're trying to do, when you're trying to send events, this is the place, right? So it's usually like auto-created for you. Then there's the scope, and the scope is, you can play around with that. When you're sending custom errors, you can define basically the scope, and you can have multiple scopes. For example, if I want to track the user, that experiences the errors, after logging in, I can dip into the scope and change the username, change the email address, and when errors happen, on that instance, they're going to be linked with that user. So if I even wanted to reach out to that user and say, okay, what did you do to cause this issue, I can do that because I know who caused the issue, who experienced that crash. So I can talk with that person because through the scope I can link him or them, I can link them with the specific crash. So that is the scope, right? And this is the options. This is what we're actually trying to get when we're writing give me the current hub, give me the client, right? So this will return us the current Sentry client. And when we say give me the options, this is it. This is basically the whole object. And instead of, it's not just the DSN, there's like the rates for tracing and for profiling. You can obtain them just like this. And what we're doing, we're just getting the DSN. We're checking if there is no DSN, then there is no no DSN. Could not retrieve the URL. If there's no hint, could not retrieve the URL. Don't ask me what the hint is. I still don't know what the hint is. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that is here. And I can see there's like no errors. There are errors in the app because the app is like massacred up until this point. But yeah, I guess there's no way of confirming if everything works now or not. My kid is going crazy. But yeah, this should technically, on paper, it should work. We can't really know unless we actually run it, Also,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
If we wanted to, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If we wanted to like package this, I believe it can be a separate package, but it can also be a script into the React Native package itself, because there is a folder, a directory called integrations, and there's like a bunch of integrations inside. But that means we'll be opening a PR on the official React Native package, which is huge. But that means we're also adding, full story package dependencies on the React Native package itself. But not every React Native Sentry user uses full story, So it's a matter of, it's not going to be like they don't get the code because there's like tree shaking, and if they don't use it, it's not going to be part of their, it's not going to be deployed. We're also going to set it as a dev dependency instead of an ordinary dependencies, but still, maybe it's good to have a, separation of concerns so we don't actually, mix, I don't know, we don't have any full story or any other integration, like we don't have any crumbs from full story into the official.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting thinking about, in general, like going from, like thinking about all the different types of, projects in general, but open source projects, and how Sentry's is all, like almost exclusively all of these integrations, right? I mean, obviously we have our Sentry.io app that we like our product, but it relies on all of these integrations. And so when you're thinking about contributing to open source, or you're thinking about open sourcing something, or even if it's not open source, like just any project, I guess. But thinking about exactly what you're doing right now, Lazar, with it, which is really thinking about where, why, and how. How is this going to affect other people? Where does it make sense to make these changes? How does it make sense to package these up? You know, things like that. Because for projects like we have at Sentry, the whole point is everyone, any developer can use this and integrate it into their workflow, right? And so not coming with the assumption, like breaking down assumptions about when and why and how people are going to use something. And I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot. Even within like small teams and closed source projects, people are like, you know, I've had people on my teams like, we're just going to implement this. And I'm like, what about somebody who's on a Mac? Like even something as simple as that, right? Like hard coding certain things or forcing it or including it and kind of having package bloat and all this stuff is stuff that you should be thinking about.
Yeah, totally. Because if especially if you're like developing tools for other developers,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really know, you know, in which way
Music stuff.
anyone can like
Oh no, yeah, the
Anyone's
music has
gonna
been going for a
use-
while.
I know I got so engrossed in what you were doing, Lazar, that I what I need to do next time is make one long list or one long audio clip. That's
yeah.
the problem. It doesn't just go to the next song.
Can we like
Uh,
make it repeat or something like that?
I can make one song repeat, but I can't make it just go to the next song. But I'll fix it for next time. Don't worry. Don't worry. So, okay. So, I mean, we need to get the actual app working, right? Whether we do that right this second or not is a different story. But in general, we're going to be streaming starting at 10 a.m. every single Wednesday throughout October, specifically focusing on Hacktoberfest. And so next week, we'll bring another issue from one of our repos that we'll try to figure out together. Maybe we will have already figured it out and we'll just kind of like share it with you all. But in the meantime, if you have, like if you're one of our viewers, one of our community members, and you have ideas for like a particular repo that you really want us to see, like really want to see us tackle, or a particular issue that like you feel strongly about, can't promise we're going to pick it, but feel free to reach out. You can tag me on Twitter. I'm at Dr. Guthels everywhere. And just like, let us know. You can also just jump in our Discord. As I mentioned, fairly active in there. Maybe we should even have like a DevRel channel for like special requests.
You
But
can just put stuff in the Hacktoberfest channel for now too.
I forgot we have a Hacktoberfest channel.
Yes.
Good thinking. Yeah, so just head over to our, let me put that URL back up. Join our Discord and jump into general Hacktoberfest. If it's related to these streams, jump into Hacktoberfest and let's check it out. Let us know if there's anything in particular you want us to try out. And yeah, we can just have fun. There's the Hacktoberfest channel. I've already read all the messages, so. So yeah, so let us know. I'm liking this spooky music.
I know. Jamming.
It's because it's Dia de los Muertos version, so it's like got a little bit more.
There's like a
Kick
Latino.
to it.
Yeah, a little. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I was also gonna say this is like so delayed, but I was trying to find the right link. I know we were talking about like philosophy of design when you're building stuff. Like one thing that I have noticed, and I'll put it in comments. Oh wait, does that work? I forget. Like we have a whole section on the philosophy of how we've made our SDKs. It's like public in our docs. And I had a really good time reading that, like talking about like, do we want more dependencies? I mean, like very top of the list is like, there's as few dependencies as possible.
Yes.
So something to think about, like whether we would put this in the React Native SDK or if it would be its own, like we might want it to be its own thing. So we don't have to get this dependency to a whole bunch of other people. Ooh. Oh, Omar. Talking about, sorry, I'm just looking at our chat again.
Oh, yeah. No. Omar, ¿estás en México ahora? No me acuerdo. I think Omar lives in Mexico.
Love it.
But frequents the stream, and often when I'm doing Spanish-speaking streams. So I'll sometimes do Spanish-speaking streams. And so I always appreciate Omar. Sí, está en México. Buenos días, buenas tardes. Ya, son tarde, no. Son las 11. So sometimes I'll do things in Spanish, and Omar is always there, which I really appreciate, because my technical Spanish language is not the best yet. But yes, this is great, Shanna. I really like this. I'm going to make a banner out of it instead, so then that way it's easier to see. But yeah, check out. We do spend a lot of time at Sentry thinking about how to write code and how to build product. It is not just kind of this free for all for like trying to do something awesome or something cool. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we are integrating within the community and within the broader developer experience. And that's something that we take a lot of like carefulness in and pride in. And so yeah, this philosophy and design principles is worth a read. Highly recommend.
And if you're reading it, I was reading it and noticed a few typos. I'm pretty sure if you like all these docs are,
you can edit this page on GitHub.
It was super easy. Hacktoberfest PR.
Good point. Actually, does this repo have a Hacktoberfest tag?
I was just gonna check. I don't see one.
Oh, we need to add it. We should definitely add it. Shanna will follow up on that and make sure that our docs pages are available for Hacktoberfest. Awesome. Anyone in the chat want to see anything in particular? Otherwise, we can keep just kind of keeping on with this one, or start browsing into another one, or head out and start prepping for the next one, basically. While people ask in the chat, I swear, I feel like this music is so loud. Some of the music is like really loud and some is not. I can't tell. But in the meantime, maybe we should jump into, like, I don't know. Do you want to actually, Lazar, do you want to jump into the issue on the one that you were just working on, and add in some comments? Like, what would you do? Let's say you didn't work at Sentry and you were contributing and you started working on this and you had something almost working and you wanted to check in with the team and you didn't have the ability to DM them on Slack.
Yeah.
What would you do as an opens? Can you model that for us?
Let's write them a comment.
Yeah.
You know, because we were pretty much stuck.
Yeah.
We're pretty much stuck, but at least I can get, like, you know, validation. Yes, Lazar, that is how it needs to be done. Good point. Exactly. And then maybe even like help on how to get unstuck. Yeah. All right. So I did some digging, and I think, and here's what.
And so I think the biggest, you can keep typing. The biggest point to this is we're not only trying to encourage you to check out our open source repositories, but in general encourage you to participate in Hacktoberfest. And part of that is demonstrating the kind of like good etiquette in participating in open source. And that's really what Hacktoberfest is about, is as an opportunity, like an excuse for you to jump into open source without it being kind of as intimidating, because these maintainers of these projects have like openly said, yes, please come join us. And so part of that, though, like we mentioned at the beginning, is having the proper communication with the maintainers of the project. And so if you decide to work on something, for example, Lazar, you did ping Manuel before this, but it could have been a good idea to first go into this issue and say, hey, I'm tackling this for Hacktoberfest, blah, 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 right? That's okay, though, because we just did it right now. And so now you're going to have kind of this follow-up chat that's kind of just setting the stage. Like, this is what I did. I essentially did this. Now I'm stuck here, and letting you all know my progress. And then if this makes sense, like, you should always test before making a PR. Though I guess there's abilities to make draft PRs now, something that my team at GitHub pushed a lot prior to, this was many, many years ago. So I'm very happy about draft PRs because you could open up a draft PR and just say, hey, this is not ready yet. Like I not necessarily asking for review, but the benefit of a draft PR is that this comment in this issue can then be referenced from that draft PR, or they can reference each other, and it can say like, hey, if you want to see the code that I'm working on, here it is. And then that way, instead of having to like copy and paste all the code changes that you're making, someone can go and look at the diff. Both are relevant though. Like a PR is a very different way of looking at changes to code than an issue comment is, because an issue comment kind of typically provides some more context and kind of what you're working on and why. PRs should do that too, but they're just different types of conversations. I don't know. Do you find that, Shanna? Do you find that PRs and issues are different types of conversations, or do you find that they're the same?
I mean, in the very obvious way, like, yeah, a PR, like, people will probably mostly be focused on the code that's happening in the PR. I feel like when people are intentional, like when you can tell the maintainers are being intentional about how they organize these things, like if a discussion like starts getting off topic of like just the code that's in the PR, people will like move it to an issue or like be like, we're going to talk about this in this related issue. So I would say in general, issues are maybe more for like open-ended discussion, and PRs like should just be about like, how would we fix this code that you are trying to get us like going such that we would merge it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I was trying to say, but did not articulate well. Like, like opening up, even if it's a draft PR, for the ability for maintainers or other collaborators or contributors to look at your code diff. That is like, and or test your changes. That is something that is one type of activity. Then there's kind of a very focused discussion around like issues, feature requests, you know, whatever, a very specific type of thing. And that typically happens in an issue. And then I would argue like a little slightly more open-ended conversations where you're not sure if this is a particular request or something that you're necessarily asking for might be better done on a discussions page in a repository if they have one. And then if you're just kind of like wanting real-time or relatively real-time help on something, or just like ideating or like thinking outside the box, trying new things, then maybe like a Discord or some other community forum it makes more sense. But thinking about kind of where you're putting what information and what the other person who might respond to you, what they're expecting in that different forum, I think is really important. So I really appreciate the amount of detail that you're putting in here, right? So these are the things that you've identified are ways to resolve this, or, you know, have this, implement this feature, basically. Listing out kind of 3 things, listing out why, asking questions like, does it actually make sense to do this instead? These are the types of things that are useful for maintainers, because it really is kind of this conversation about, hey, I've identified a solution, here's why, but I'm not just saying it's my way, right? Like I took the time to think about the impact of this solution, and that part that you're adding in right there at the bottom, I think is important. Exactly.
Yeah, because for example, when contributing to open source projects, you don't know the whole picture. You know, the creator of the project has the whole picture, and they know where the project wants to go, right?
Yep.
So you might find a solution, but it might clash with some of the feature plans, that possibly the creator of the project has has in store, and not everyone is going to be willing to explain. You know what? This is why I'm not going to accept your solution.
Yep.
Depends on the person, but it's fine even if they just say no and just decline the PR, and that's it. You're not going to get any explanations to why. But
that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Like we need, as contributors, non-maintainers, it's important to remember, again, we've said this a bunch of times on the stream, but it's important to remember maintainers are not necessarily doing this full time. They're not necessarily getting paid for this. And so we need to provide as much information as possible, because we're trying to add to this very complex, set of code ecosystem that, again, like you just said, Lazar, is we don't have that whole picture, and we can't necessarily expect them to share that with every single person who might come across this repository. And exactly. I would argue that maintainers need to also recognize that, in order to invite contributors and be kind of open to, especially like newer people joining in or things like that, that they should provide some level of like, hey, this is a really great idea. This is conflicting with our plans. So for the future, going to close this for now. However, again, it is maybe just one human who's got 50 PRs of things that just completely clash, and they haven't had a chance to like share out some big issue plan for what they're planning on doing next. And so all they can do is say like, get rid of this noise because it's causing issues with being able to progress in the development of this project. So not to be like, what is that called? When you have one person gets one set of expectations, the other gets the other, but
hypocritical.
Yeah, hypocritical. Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, giving maintainers more grace, I think, is a good rule of thumb. Awesome. Well, Lazar's going to finish writing up this comment. Remember, you can go check out this particular repository. This is the issue that we're working on right now. Feel free to jump in, check out what we were working on. Obviously, this isn't a PR, so you're not going to have the code there yet. But as conversations progress, then I'm assuming a PR will be opened, and then you can check out that. And following this link, we'll link to the PR as well, because the PR will likely say closes issue number 1966, which will automatically close it when the PR is merged. Remember, we do have other repositories that are doing Hacktoberfest. So all of them, but like in particular, we have some issues where we are like explicitly inviting you. So our JavaScript one, our Dart, our React Native, and then our Python one. But as Shanna mentioned, if you see any of our Sentry repositories that are open, if you see any of our Sentry repositories that don't have Hacktoberfest labels, just ping us. Let us know.
Yeah.
We'll fix
As you can see,
Manuel just added it.
Hey, look at that.
They're adding labels where are missing. So of course, it doesn't have to have the Hacktoberfest label. Totally.
It does not. It does not. In the meantime, I mean, I want to know what you all want to hear or like want to see us do next week. Shanna, Lazar, and I are going to each identify a new issue within the Sentry repos to tackle for the next couple weeks. But again, if there's one in particular, let us know. Other than that, I think we should just say happy hacking. Good luck. Join us next week.
Yeah, sounds good.
Remember, don't forget to register for Hacktoberfest at hacktoberfest.com. And don't forget to check out all of our upcoming virtual and in-person events that are going to be happening worldwide on different time zones, different cities, different topics. And if you want to co-host with us, let us know. Otherwise, we will be back next week. Same time, same place. Maybe even longer stream if we can get a couple of us having picked out an issue. October snuck up on me. I don't know about you all. All right. Thank you all for joining. Que tengan buen día en Mexico. And we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.